The date was January 19th, 2026, and the wrestling world thought they had seen everything. After decades of twists, turns, and shocking moments, fans believed they could predict the trajectory of any storyline, anticipate any swerve, see through any attempt at surprise. They were wrong. What unfolded on that night would shatter expectations, rewrite allegiances, and create one of the most stunning partnerships in WWE history. The reverberations of this single moment would echo through the industry for months, perhaps years to come, changing the landscape of professional wrestling in ways nobody could have imagined. The arena was packed to capacity, as it always is when WWE comes to town. The energy was palpable, that unique electricity that only live wrestling can generate. Fans held their signs high, their voices already hoarse from hours of cheering and chanting. The show had been building steadily throughout the evening, with solid matches and compelling segments keeping the crowd engaged and entertained. But nothing could have prepared them for what was about to transpire in the final hour of programming. Brock Lesnar stood in the ring, a mountain of muscle and menace, his presence alone enough to command attention from every person in the building. The Beast Incarnate has spent years establishing himself as the most dominant force in WWE, a legitimate fighter whose amateur wrestling credentials and MMA background give him an aura of danger that few others possess. He wasn't alone in the ring. Standing beside him was Bronson Reed, the massive powerhouse who has been making waves since his arrival on the main roster. The combination of these two behemoths created an intimidating sight, two men who could physically dominate almost anyone on the roster. They had issued an open challenge earlier in the evening, daring anyone in the locker room to step up and face them in a tag team match. It was the kind of arrogant gesture that heels make when they believe themselves untouchable, when they're so confident in their superiority that they invite challengers rather than avoiding them. The crowd had been buzzing with speculation about who might answer the call. Would it be a team of established tag specialists? Would two uppercard singles stars band together for one night? The possibilities seemed endless, and the anticipation had been building for over an hour. The lights in the arena dimmed slightly, signaling that something significant was about to happen. The crowd's volume increased immediately, thousands of voices merging into a wall of sound. Then the music hit. That distinctive static-filled opening, followed by the words that have become iconic in wrestling culture. Cult of Personality blasted through the arena speakers, and the reaction was instantaneous and deafening. CM Punk's entrance music has that effect, triggering an almost Pavlovian response in wrestling fans who have followed his career through its various chapters and controversies. CM Punk emerged from behind the curtain, and the arena absolutely erupted. The voice of the voiceless, the best in the world, the man who walked away from WWE at the height of his powers only to return years later, stood at the top of the entrance ramp with that familiar confident smirk on his face. He was dressed for combat, his ring gear suggesting he was ready to answer Lesnar and Reed's challenge. The crowd was chanting his name so loudly that it drowned out his music, a testament to the connection he maintains with the WWE Universe, despite all the years and all the drama. Punk began his walk down the entrance ramp, soaking in the adulation, acknowledging the fans with subtle nods and gestures. In the ring, Brock Lesnar and Bronson Reed watched his approach with interest and amusement. They seemed pleased that someone of Punk's caliber had accepted their challenge, eager to destroy a legend and cement their dominance. Paul Heyman, who stood at ringside serving as Lesnar's advocate, had a knowing smile on his face, confident in his client's ability to dismantle anyone who dared to challenge him. But as Punk reached the bottom of the ramp, he stopped. He didn't slide into the ring as expected. Instead, he turned his attention back toward the entrance, waiting. The crowd sensed something was happening, their anticipation building once again. Who was Punk's partner going to be? The speculation was rampant, with fans turning to each other, voicing theories and predictions in rapid-fire succession. Then the lights went out completely. The arena plunged into darkness, and the crowd's reaction shifted from excitement to something approaching pandemonium. They knew what this meant. There was only one entrance in WWE that commanded a complete blackout, only one wrestler whose presence required theatrical darkness. The anticipation was almost unbearable, the seconds stretching out as everyone waited for confirmation of what they suspected. The first notes hit, and the arena exploded with a mixture of cheers and boos that created a sonic assault unlike anything else in wrestling. Roman Reigns' entrance music filled the venue, the tribal-themed beat pounding through the speakers with primal intensity. The tribal chief, the head of the table, the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, was about to make his entrance. But the question on everyone's mind was simple and profound. Why was he coming out with CM Punk? The lights came back up, revealing Roman Reigns standing at the top of the entrance ramp in all his glory. He wore his traditional entrance attire, his championship title draped over his shoulder, his presence commanding instant attention despite Punk standing just feet away. The two men locked eyes, and for a moment, the entire arena seemed to hold its breath. These were two of the biggest egos in WWE, two men who had never shown any inclination to work together, two competitors who had gone on record questioning each other's abilities and credentials. But then something remarkable happened. Roman Reigns nodded at CM Punk, and CM Punk nodded back. It was a simple gesture, lasting only a second, but its implications were staggering. This wasn't a reluctant partnership or an uneasy alliance born of circumstance. This appeared to be a calculated decision, a deliberate choice by two of WWE's biggest stars to align themselves with each other. The crowd's reaction shifted from confusion to absolute chaos as they processed what they were witnessing. Roman Reigns began his walk down the entrance ramp, moving with that characteristic slow, deliberate pace that makes every step seem significant. Punk waited for him, and when Reigns reached the bottom of the ramp, the two men stood side by side for a moment, allowing the gravity of the image to sink in. The camera captured it perfectly, CM Punk and Roman Reigns, together, united in purpose, about to enter the ring as partners. It was the kind of shot that would be replayed thousands of times, analyzed frame by frame, used in video packages for years to come. In the ring, the expressions on Brock Lesnar and Bronson Reed had changed dramatically. The amusement and confidence had evaporated, replaced by wariness and calculation. They were now facing not just CM Punk, which would have been challenging enough, but CM Punk and Roman Reigns working together. This changed the dynamic completely, transforming what they had expected to be a dominant showcase of their power into something far more uncertain and dangerous. Punk and Reigns circled the ring slowly, approaching from different sides, their strategy already evident. They weren't rushing in recklessly. They were calculating, methodical, working in concert despite having no history of teaming together. It spoke to the ring intelligence of both men, their ability to adapt and read situations in real time. Lesnar and Reed positioned themselves back-to-back in the center of the ring, trying to keep eyes on both approaching threats simultaneously. The moment arrived. Punk and Reigns both slid into the ring from opposite sides at exactly the same time, and all hell broke loose. The match, if it could even be called that, descended into chaos immediately. Punk went after Bronson Reed while Reigns engaged with Brock Lesnar, and the intensity was immediate and visceral. These weren't wrestlers feeling each other out in the opening moments of a match. These were warriors launching into battle with full force from the first second. CM Punk unloaded on Bronson Reed with a fury that surprised many observers. Punk has never been the biggest or strongest wrestler, but he compensates with technical skill, intensity, and an understanding of psychology that few can match. He peppered Reed with strikes, targeting specific areas, working with purpose and precision. Reed tried to use his size advantage, grabbing at Punk and attempting to shut down the offense with power moves, but Punk was too quick, too experienced, constantly moving and staying one step ahead. On the other side of the ring, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar were engaged in the kind of physical confrontation that only they can produce. These are two of the most legitimate tough guys in WWE, men who carry themselves with an aura of genuine danger. Their exchanges weren't the choreographed dance of typical wrestling matches, but something rawer, more primal. Lesnar attempted to use his amateur wrestling background to take Reigns down, but the tribal chief sprawled perfectly, defending the takedown attempts and countering with strikes of his own. The crowd was absolutely electric, chanting for both teams, unable to decide who to support in this clash of titans. The action was fast and furious, bodies crashing into turnbuckles, ring ropes straining under the weight of men being thrown into them, the canvas shaking with every impact. The referee seemed almost superfluous, unable to establish any control or order, simply trying to stay out of the way as these four men waged war. Then the tide began to turn. Despite their impressive resistance, the numbers game started to favor Punk and Reigns. Their coordination was remarkable for two men who had never teamed before, showing an instinctive understanding of tag team dynamics. When Lesnar had Reigns in trouble, Punk would break from Reed to deliver a crucial strike or kick that would stagger the beast incarnate. When Reed caught Punk in a power move, Reigns would intervene, his Superman punch connecting perfectly to save his partner. The systematic dismantling of Brock Lesnar and Bronson Reed was something to behold. Punk and Reigns worked like a well-oiled machine, isolating Reed first, cutting the ring in half, preventing him from tagging in Lesnar. They took turns delivering punishment, quick tags keeping them fresh while wearing down their larger opponent. Reed's power became less of a factor as fatigue set in, his movements slowing, his defenses dropping. CM Punk delivered a devastating knee strike to Reed's head, the impact echoing through the arena with a sickening thud. Reed staggered backward, his eyes glazed, clearly dazed from the blow. Before he could recover, Roman Reigns charged across the ring and delivered a thunderous spear, his shoulder driving into Reed's midsection with enough force to fold the big man in half. Reed crashed to the canvas, the ring shaking from the impact, and rolled out of the ring to escape further punishment, his body a mass of pain and exhaustion. That left Brock Lesnar alone in the ring, facing both CM Punk and Roman Reigns. The realization seemed to dawn on the beast incarnate simultaneously with the audience. For all his dominance, for all his legitimate toughness, even Brock Lesnar couldn't overcome two elite competitors working in perfect synchronization. He looked at Punk, then at Reigns, his legendary intensity still burning in his eyes, but now tempered with the understanding that he was in serious trouble. Lesnar tried to fight his way out, throwing vicious strikes at both men, using every ounce of his considerable strength and skill to create separation. For a moment, it almost worked. He caught Punk with a massive clothesline that sent the straight-edge superstar crashing to the canvas. He grabbed Reigns and delivered a belly-to-belly suplex that launched the tribal chief halfway across the ring. Lesnar's raw power was on full display, a reminder of why he's been so dominant for so many years. But Punk and Reigns recovered quickly, and their counterattack was swift and brutal. Punk low-bridged the top rope when Lesnar charged at him, sending the beast tumbling to the outside of the ring. Reigns followed immediately, not giving Lesnar a chance to regroup. Outside the ring, with no countouts being enforced in this chaotic situation, the assault continued with even greater intensity. Roman Reigns grabbed Brock Lesnar and drove him back first into the steel ring post, the impact creating a loud metallic clang that made the entire audience wince in sympathy. Lesnar's face contorted in pain, his back arching from the impact against the unforgiving steel. Before he could recover, CM Punk came flying through the air with a suicide dive through the ropes, his body crashing into Lesnar and driving him backward into the barricade. The barricade buckled under the combined impact, the metal barrier bending and separating from its moorings. Fans in the front row scattered backward, their excitement mixed with genuine concern about being caught in the carnage. Lesnar lay against the damaged barricade, his face showing pain and exhaustion, his legendary cardio pushed to its limits by the sustained assault from two elite competitors. Punk and Reigns looked at each other, and again that wordless communication passed between them. They reached down simultaneously and hauled Brock Lesnar to his feet. The Beast tried to resist, throwing weakened punches at both men, but his defenses were compromised, his power depleted. They walked him toward the ringside area, toward the announcer's table where the commentary team had wisely abandoned their positions moments earlier. The announce table, that famous prop that has been destroyed countless times in WWE history, sat waiting. The monitors had been removed, the Spanish announce team having fled to safety, leaving their workspace vulnerable to the inevitable destruction. Punk and Reigns positioned Lesnar on the table, laying him out flat, his massive frame covering most of the surface area. CM Punk climbed onto the ring apron, steadying himself, measuring the distance. The crowd knew what was coming, their anticipation building to a fever pitch. Punk has never been a high flyer in the traditional sense, but he's always been willing to take risks when the moment called for it. He launched himself off the apron, his body sailing through the air in an elbow drop that targeted Brock Lesnar's chest with precision and force. The impact was catastrophic. The announce table exploded beneath the combined weight and force, monitors and wood fragments flying in all directions. Lesnar's body crashed through the wreckage to the floor below, while Punk rolled away from the impact zone, clutching his own elbow in pain from the maneuver. The crowd was chanting "Holy shit" over and over, their voices hoarse, but their enthusiasm undiminished. But the assault wasn't over. Roman Reigns stood over the wreckage, looking down at Brock Lesnar's prone form with cold calculation. He reached down and, with surprising effort given Lesnar's size and dead weight, hauled the beast to his feet once more. Lesnar could barely stand, his legs unsteady, his arms hanging loosely at his sides. He was completely defenseless, all his legendary toughness overwhelmed by the sustained attack. Reigns positioned Lesnar's head under his arm, setting up for his devastating finisher. The crowd recognized the setup immediately, their volume increasing once again. Roman lifted Brock Lesnar up and drove him down with a thunderous spear onto the exposed concrete floor at ringside. The impact was sickening, Lesnar's body bouncing slightly before settling motionless on the ground. The tribal chief stood over his fallen opponent, chest heaving, sweat dripping from his face, his expression one of cold satisfaction. CM Punk had recovered from his elbow drop and joined Roman Reigns, standing over Brock Lesnar's motionless form. The two men looked at each other, and in that moment, something passed between them. This wasn't just about beating Lesnar and Reed tonight. This was a statement about the future. This was two of the biggest stars in WWE declaring themselves aligned, creating a power structure that would dominate the landscape going forward. But they weren't finished yet. Bronson Reed had recovered enough to pull himself up using the ring apron on the opposite side of the ring. He was clearly hurt, moving gingerly, but his size and toughness had allowed him to survive the earlier assault. He looked across the ring and saw Punk and Reigns standing over Lesnar, and something in his expression suggested he was considering whether to attempt a rescue or retreat to safety. The decision was made for him. Punk and Reigns spotted Reed simultaneously and began moving toward him with predatory intent. Reed tried to create distance, backing away along the ringside area, but he was still too hurt to move effectively. The two attackers circled around, cutting off his escape routes, hurting him like prey. Bronson Reed tried to mount a defense, throwing desperate strikes at both men, using his considerable power to try to fight them off. He caught Punk with a heavy right hand that staggered the straight-edge superstar backward. He grabbed Reigns and attempted to lift him for a power slam, showcasing his impressive strength even in a compromised state. But the numbers game was too much to overcome. CM Punk recovered from the punch and delivered a vicious kick to the back of Reed's knee, buckling his leg and bringing him down to one knee. With Reed in that vulnerable position, Roman Reigns charged forward and delivered another devastating spear, this one hitting with such force that Reed's entire body flipped over from the impact. He crashed to the floor in a heap, his massive frame finally overwhelmed by the sustained assault. The carnage at ringside was remarkable. Brock Lesnar lay motionless near the destroyed announce table, his body barely moving except for the rise and fall of his chest as he breathed. Bronson Reed was sprawled a few feet away, equally devastated by the attack. And standing above them both, surveying the destruction they had wrought, were CM Punk and Roman Reigns. The image was powerful and loaded with implications. These were two men who represented different eras of WWE, different styles, different philosophies. Punk was the anti-establishment rebel who had famously walked away from the company when he felt disrespected. Reigns was the company's chosen one, the heir apparent to John Cena's throne, groomed for success by WWE management. They should have been natural enemies, their paths divergent and opposed. Instead, they stood united, their alliance creating possibilities that the wrestling world had never considered. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer or boo, their reactions mixed and confused. This wasn't a clear hero versus villain dynamic. This was something more complex, more nuanced, more unpredictable than traditional wrestling storytelling usually allows. Roman Reigns climbed into the ring, his movements deliberate and purposeful. He called for a microphone and a ringside attendant scrambled to provide one. The tribal chief stood in the center of the ring, his championship title over his shoulder, his chest still heaving from exertion, sweat glistening on his skin under the arena lights. CM Punk joined him in the ring, positioning himself